Hey there, Cosmic Warriors, and welcome back to another video. And if you are new here, my name is Hannah. I'm a Western practical astrologer. Okay, so today I am here with the final major asteroid in this mini series, Pallas Athena. Yes, we are going to be exploring Pallas Athena through the signs today. Thank you so much for being here, and if you do enjoy this video, please be sure to give it a like and subscribe for more if you haven't already. And I also want to mention that before we get started, if you would like to learn more about astrology, then you can always pick up a copy of my astrology cheat sheets. They are available over on hannahselsewhere.com. And also, if you would like to book a reading with me, you can go to my website. I've actually updated my services. I'm very excited about it. They have a fresh look. So go to my website, see what you like. And there have been a couple of new services added, which I'm very excited about there too. Okay. There is an episode all about Pallas Athena over on my podcast, the Cosmic Check-In podcast. So that episode is 51. Yes, Pallas Athena, all about strategy, our creative gifts, and wise counsel. So if you would like to learn more about her and her mythology, check out that episode, 51. Right. So as we have been exploring the asteroids in this mini-series, I have been showing this image because the unique thing about the asteroid goddesses is that they are siblings to Neptune, Pluto, and Jupiter, right? We often talk about those planets in astrology. But you see, Athena, Pallas Athena, is quite unique, very unique actually, because she was born from Zeus's head. Yeah, you get into the mythology if you want to learn more about her and her story. That's why you need to listen to the episode. But isn't that really, really interesting? And this leads us on to this brief description all about her and how she shows up in your chart, right? So I've put there that it's a good idea to look to the connections between Pallas Athena and Jupiter in your chart, right? And for me, I can certainly identify those connections. For me, I've got Pallas Athena in Sagittarius, and then the fairy ruler of Sagittarius is Jupiter. I have Jupiter in Virgo, and the thing about Pallas Athena is she can really point toward the bigger picture, how we see the bigger picture. And with Jupiter, so my natal Jupiter being in Virgo, there can be times when I find it challenging to see the bigger picture, right? I can get bogged down by details and facts. So that's interesting to see how the two play out. However, Pallas Athena in Sagittarius does have its strengths, which we're going to get into when we explore Pallas Athena in Sagittarius. But let's explore her a little bit more. She is so much about how we strategize, right? That's so different to, for example, Mars. You know, Mars is this force. It's like, okay, I want to go after a goal, and so I'm going to push and I'm going to do it. Okay. Pallas Athena sort of says to Mars, hold on, slow it down here. Have you thought this through? Let's actually strategize and think of a good way to go about this. Let's use our creative intelligence. And remember, creativity is so much about how we come up with solutions. It's drawing from our own abilities, our own experiences, and then we can go from there. So it's not necessarily creativity within the sense of, okay, well, you're an artist or you're a writer, you're a performer. It's also about creative intelligence within our everyday lives and how that shows up. Of course, this stuff can also be applied to our creative gifts as well. So it's all valid. Still, Pallas Athena really does represent wise counsel, wisdom. I'm pretty sure one of the symbols associated with her is the owl. So owls are known for being very wise, symbolically. And then she also had the snake, and apparently the snake is really to do with prophecy, sort of seeing into the future. So there is this very visionary quality to Pallas Athena, but then it's also about looking to people who maybe we consider to be quite wise, right? We can look to other people who have more experience, they have more knowledge, and they can assist us. But then equally, this is where we can grow within our own knowledge, our own wisdom over time due to experience. Plus, with Pallas Athena, we defend ourselves. We do. We defend ourselves as we step into battle. Again, it's not really in the Mars way of, okay, you become super defensive and maybe you become super aggressive. Not to say, okay, when it comes to aggression, healthy aggression is healthy. That's what I'm trying to get at, right? I'm not saying that aggression is bad, but Pallas Athena still wants to think it through. It's more about the mind, it's more about the intellect. Remember, she was born from Jupiter's head, Zeus's head. So she's political, she stands for justice, she's quite poised in her delivery, she's very diplomatic, right? She is all about law and order. And we also see that Pallas Athena carries other themes. I mean, this asteroid, okay, full of many gifts, many gifts. So Pallas Athena points toward healing methods, our health, our creative inspiration even. I did start off by seeing Pallas Athena as a type of muse, sort of representing our muse. And then when I dived more into her, and then I thought about, okay, muse in astrology, where is that? There is literally the 9 muses in your birth chart. Yes, I have a video all about that on the channel. And I also now offer a reading over on my website. So it's called Find Your Muse, and it's really for people who are creatives, artists, innovators, entrepreneurs. Oh, yeah. So, all in all, I'm saying here that Pallas Athena does point toward creative inspiration. Plus, when we consider other factors, there can be fears regarding competition and success. We want to be mindful of that. Oh, yeah, there can be those difficulties, those challenges to overcome when we work with her. Plus, yes, still about bravery and courage, but like I was trying to say a moment ago, different to how Mars does it. Still, equally, it could be beneficial to look to both, right? How does Mars show up? And then how does Pallas Athena show up? And you can see the connections between the two. And then, like I said, the connections between Jupiter and Pallas Athena, which leads me on to my final point. Father/daddy issues. Yeah, Pallas Athena can point toward any potential issues with the father, especially when we think about the mythology. But I would say that, yeah, maybe that's where more challenging aspects could be explored. But anyway, that is the overview all about Pallas Athena and how she shows up in your birth chart, her function. And now we are going to explore her through the signs. And I want to say thank you all so much for watching. Okay, so first up then we have Pallas Athena in the sign of Aries. Right, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how quickly you can come up with solutions to new issues. Okay, so you can think on your feet pretty well. A new issue arises, and you're already possibly thinking of ways to overcome it or to do something. You're also pretty innovative, right? You can be a pioneer. Maybe you take the lead. You take the lead within that particular situation. And then, like I said, you can think on your feet. So there is a speed, there's a swiftness, a fastness to this. And you can also act as your own source of inspiration too, right? When we think about inspiration tied to Pallas Athena, yeah, you thinking about, okay, what inspires you, the self? What goals do you have? What do you want out of life? You'll even fight for the things you believe in, right? You might really defend the things you believe in, stand by them for the things that you believe also to be right, to be true, right? This could be where justice truly shows up for you. You're typically the first person then to set things in motion, and you can even lead the way or lead the way for others, right? You can maybe be an example for other people, or other people may feel inspired by your courage, by your bravery. You would rather face injustice head on. It's like, let's speak the truth. Let's call it out. And you might also possess strong political views. You're not going to be easily swayed by others, by their views, by their opinions. And also, I'm thinking that you're going to stand up for the vulnerable, for the weak, for the innocent. You're going to really stand up for the underdog. Yes. Perhaps you choose not to seek any type of healing from others because perhaps you think to yourself you can deal with things on your own. But then again, I'm also thinking that perhaps the likes of sports, physical activity, or screaming could very well contribute to your healing. Or it's that you actively, right? You could actively seek healing practices. But again, this has to come from you. This has to come from your desire, your push, your ability to think for yourself, right? This is so much about your own independence, your freedom. And you also might possess a love for healthy competition, right? When we think about competition with relation to Pallas Athena, yeah, there could be a love for healthy competition, and you don't typically fear losing. Naturally, yes, this does depend on aspects to Pallas Athena, because if there are maybe more challenging aspects to Pallas Athena in Aries, this could be where, for example, there could be some unhealthy forms of competition here, where you can be overly aggressive or overly pushy and demanding, or you might try to sort of compete with other people unnecessarily. But then equally, this could also manifest, I guess it depends on the aspects and everything, but it could also manifest as you choosing not to take part, right? Maybe you think to yourself, oh, well, what good is that anyway? Yeah. And I'm also going to say that my father had Pallas in Aries. Yeah. When I think about that, it's so interesting because my moon is in Aries, and my father was always cheering me on and encouraging me with my performances and my sports and my competitions. Yeah, he was really, really supportive as a dad. And we would also do a lot of sporty sort of things together. We would play tennis together. We would play football together, even though I don't like football, but he did. Yeah, so that's quite interesting to think about those connections and what my father passed on to me through his own Pallas Athena sign. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Pallas Athena in Aries, folks. And now we are going to explore Pallas Athena in Taurus. All right, Pallas Athena in Taurus, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how visual you can be. Oh, yeah. So you just might visualize how a new issue can be resolved, right? How it can be resolved, how it can be sorted out. In fact, you might actually use your physical senses to work your way through it. So, whilst there can be this visual quality, there can also be a very sensational quality in that you're going to pay attention to your sensations, your body's sensations. You're very much in tune with your body. And when you can tune in with your body, that could be when the answers, the solutions to problems, they come through. But I'm also thinking that this takes time. It takes some time. There's a slowness here. And I'm also thinking too that you can tune in with the natural world as well, right? So you can even use what you already have, right? You can be resourceful. You can see what tools you can use, what materials you can use. And I'm also thinking that you can be quite artistic. Yes, you can be rather artistic. Perhaps you even turn to the likes of art, culture, food, music, and all things beautiful as your sources of inspiration. You just might be moved strongly by what you hear. So, music, for instance, a certain song could inspire you and it could even add to your creative gifts, your creative insight. This could also be some sort of food, right? So, food that you enjoy, and then it's something that really highlights and activates your inspiration. And then that within itself can be tied to your own ways of being strategic. So, to think about your strategic thinking, yeah, a lot of this is about the things that you find pleasure in, the things that are comfortable for you, that feel safe, that feel secure for you. Maybe you're always thinking about, okay, well, how can I make sure that I feel secure? How can I make sure that I have enough? So on and so forth. You'll also use your common sense in political debates and issues. Oh, yeah, you're going to remain pretty calm, pretty calm in situations that are unjust. For such reasons, other people may get riled up because you're so calm and cool and collected, and you come with common sense. hmm But you'll also possess fixed opinions. You can be very, very fixed. Hard to change your mind. Let's put it that way, which isn't necessarily a bad thing either, okay? Perhaps also you take your time when deciding on any healing methods you prefer. You want to know if it's going to be truly valuable and useful, but valuable more so. Maybe natural medicine, cooking, sewing, gardening, oh, playing music, even. Okay. These things contribute to your healing. And when you do find something that works, you stick to it. Oh, yeah. You stick to what is familiar. And when we think about competition, okay, you might not be fond of competition. You might not want to get into that because you kind of think, oh, it just disturbs your inner calm. And you think, why would I bother with that? Why would I bother with that? But if you know you'll come out winning, you just might participate. See, it's all about the incentive with Taurus. It's all about, okay, is this worth it? I mean, really, is this worth it? Am I going to get a paycheck after this? Am I going to be rewarded in some way? Am I going to have a nice hot bath that I really want? Or is it taking me away from my nice hot bath? Is it taking me away from my comforts? Then why on earth would I do it? So it's these kinds of questions. But then I'm also thinking that with difficult aspects, sure, things could show up differently. So maybe more challenging aspects could literally show up as you being quite stuck and you don't want to move and you'd rather not step into creating a strategy or thinking strategically. You just kind of go, whatever, I'm going to be passive here. It doesn't matter. Or it could even manifest as you being very stuck in the strategy itself. Okay, where you hold on, hold on, hold on, and then there's no other option available, right? You can remain very caught up in this immovable energy, right? Where there's no changeability present. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena in Taurus. And now we're going to talk about Pallas Athena in Gemini. Okay, Pallas Athena in Gemini, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how intellectual and communicative you can be. So, what you may do is you may use your words to come up with solutions to new issues, and you'll draw from the information you have already gathered. So I imagine this, for example, as you communicating, first of all, what you're going to do with others, or possibly looking to others for feedback or their input, maybe bouncing your ideas off others. And so, in this way, you get a lot of input and feedback, many opinions back. You might also know a thing or two about the issue itself due to how you pick up bite sized pieces of knowledge everywhere you go. Oh, yeah, I imagine this, for example, as a certain challenge or an issue coming up, and your creative intelligence kicks in by going, oh, aha, I read this once in a book, or I know the definition of this. Let me come up with a solution. You're a master as well with words. Yes, communication is key here. And you might even turn to writers, teachers, media, and reading as sources of inspiration. And I do want to highlight this. This is where it's important to look to aspects to Pallas Athena in the charts. I mean, I know for myself, I've got Pallas Athena in Sagittarius, the opposite sign of Gemini, but she does make a sextile to Mercury in my chart, and Mercury is in Aquarius. And I do relate to this sort of, turning to writers and teachers, media as my sources of inspiration. I'm always learning and absorbing as much info as possible from a variety of sources. Still, you'll use your sharp wit, Pallas, Athena, and Gemini folks, within the realm of the likes of politics, and you'll communicate when justice should be served in your opinion. Equally, however, I mean, this could also be about knowing when to not say anything, too. It really depends on the audience, the crowd, the situation at hand. However, we also see that your views are subject to change. They are subject to change, and that could also be where your curiosity comes through a great deal. You're curious also about a variety of healing methods. Yeah, maybe talking, poetry, or learning. These things all contribute to your healing, and you're also going to pass on what you learn to others. And like I said, the Mercury aspect to my Pallas Athena and in the chart, so where Pallas Athena is in my chart basically. And there was a period of my life when I would speak to myself in the mirror. That really helped me. It was very therapeutic, very helpful. I also would have recorded, certain voice notes. I just needed to listen back to my voice. I needed to listen to my progress. So maybe you can relate in some way, shape, or form, Pallas Athena and Gemini. And there can also be times when you will gladly compete. You can be. However, there can also be times when you'd rather leave it. It depends, you see, right? There is this changeability, there's this flexibility. Heck, you could even decide to enter into some type of competitive situation, and then you get into it and you think, well, I'm not interested anymore. I'm bored. I'm not interested. I want to jump onto something else. I don't see the point in this. Still, yeah, there can be that switch with Gemini, but I'm also going to say that this is where you got to think about aspects. Yes, aspects. So challenging aspects, especially for example, I mean, this could show up as, well, maybe you think you know a thing or two within a certain area, but then you realize, oh, I've actually got a lot more to learn. Or maybe you get so curious and you want to jump into this new intellectual thing, But then you realize that, oh, yeah, actually, yeah, I do. I need to make sure that I have all the information, all of the facts. Could even be a case of you finding it challenging to find the words, how to articulate yourself. So, this, as I'm trying to get at, it really does depend on your chart and aspects to Pallas Athena. But there is still overall this curiosity and this changeability when we think about your strategic thinking. There's such a variety to how you think strategically, and then that within itself can open you up to so many options. And it could get to a point where you sort of realize, oh my goodness, I have too many options now. And then maybe there could be times when you need to refine that a bit. Yeah. Thank you so much, Pallas, Athena, and Gemini, folks. And now we're going to explore Pallas, Athena in Cancer. All right, Pallas, Athena, in Cancer, folks, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how intuitive and in tune you are, especially with your emotions, with your gut feelings, your moods, even connecting with other people's moods, other people's emotions, picking up on things pretty well, being very sensitive to other people's needs. Maybe you can kind of predict what somebody needs before they actually verbalize it or communicate it. You'll even feel through any new issues that arise. So, if there is a new issue to be resolved, if there is some type of strategic thinking that needs to come into play, you know how to then comfort yourself and others through that process. So, there can be a gentleness, a soothing effect, basically, that you can give off. Your hypersensitivity and your empathy can help you figure things out. You basically assess the deeper layers, the emotional landscape, the things that can't necessarily be seen, but they are felt. They are felt deeply. You're very, very perceptive in this way. You might even turn to the likes of caregiving, art, music, food, family, history as sources of inspiration. And you'll defend your loved ones with this tenacious stance. Yeah. If others ever hurt your family, as an example, you will fight honorably on behalf of your family. You might even also defend your heritage, your culture, your way of life, as well as your children, even the elderly. And I'm also thinking here that this stuff is so much about your own personal cycles, and rhythms. So there could be times whenever, for example, your strategic thinking, it's more in flow and it's more heightened in that you feel connected with it, or you can see things a lot more clearly. And maybe during those times you feel more relaxed, more happy, or you feel good. But then there can also be times, for instance, when things are a bit rocky, things are a bit shaky, right? Because Cancer is all about those emotional tides, those emotional fluctuations. So, in this way, perhaps the thing that you might choose to do is to wait out your emotions, right? Your emotional waves, and then to see after, okay, do I still feel like this? Is, for example, this new project something that I truly feel called to do? But then equally, there are those intuitive elements that come into the equation, right? Plus, you may be drawn toward healing practices that are revitalizing, really revitalizing. They're comforting. There's something here about that refreshing feeling. You know, there's something here about being able to release and let go. Maybe the likes of bathing, cooking, affection, or family time. walks in nature, right? These things contribute to your healing. And hey, you know what? This is the thing about the healing methods tied to Pallas Athena. These things within themselves contribute to the strategic thinking. That's what I'm also getting from this. They contribute to your strategic thinking as well. So seeing that those methods are so important because they help with how you plan things out or with how you come up with new solutions to new problems. And then also, you'll support others through their own healing potentially, especially if those people are very close to you. You might even prefer to feel competitive environments out before deciding to take part. And this within itself does speak to your leadership. It speaks to your strategic ways of showing up within the world. Maybe this is also where you draw again from your intuitive powers, your intuitive strengths to sort of go, is this something I want to be involved with? Will I just become tangled up in this emotionally? Maybe I better not. Of course, this also does depend on aspects to Pallas, right? Remember aspects in the chart. I mean, for example, difficult aspects to Pallas Athena could show up in a way where you become emotionally enmeshed, you become emotionally tangled up in everybody else's problems, and then you don't really stop to reflect or go, hold on, why am I getting involved in something that I don't need to be involved with? Or it could also equally show up as maybe you retreating or hiding, or you want to get away from that. There could be the avoidance of facing the truth, facing maybe that challenge to overcome. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena and Cancer folks. And now we are going to explore Pallas Athena in Leo. Okay, Pallas Athena in Leo, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how animated and expressive you can be. So you just might use your gifted creativity and your vision and your leadership abilities to come up with solutions to new issues that arise. And you'll sure know how to put on a show throughout the process, almost like this is something that comes so naturally to you. You shine, you thrive when it comes to coming up with solutions that work, and you desperately want them to work. You have that confidence within yourself to make them work. You typically will not shy away from expressing how you see things, and you'll enjoy, possibly, you will enjoy the attention and the praise, the celebration, the recognition you receive for being a star. I kind of see this as you loving it whenever you come up with an effective solution, and then you being applauded for that. It just, it really might make you feel good on the inside. You also might aim to impress others with your creative intelligence, your creative gifts, with your ability to be strategic. Yeah, your strategic thinking is something that you might really be proud of, or you wish to be proud of, and so you want to do your best. And you might even turn to storytelling, performing, romance, dating as sources of inspiration. Heck, this could also be about self love, right? There's that self love piece to do with Leo. And so this could be where you feel inspired, where you think, yeah, how can I be proud of myself today? How can I make myself proud in this moment? And you'll also use your leadership and your charisma when it comes to the likes of politics, justice. Yeah. When you want to create justice, you will not be swayed. No, no, no. And you just might be interested in healing methods that involve play, play, drama, art, pleasure, liveliness, tapping into your inner child, dance, all of these really fun things. And we also notice that perhaps art therapy, comedy, dance, or drama contribute to your healing. And you'll also be proud of your progress. Interestingly, I love that. And this is where I want to bring something in, and it's to do with my own chart, and it's really to help you understand that aspects matter. So basically, in my chart, Pallas Athena is in Sagittarius and creates sextiles to Mercury and the Sun in Aquarius. So the Sun, right? The Sun element, Sun is about celebration, Sun is about recognition. And so I would say that I relate to what I've been sharing so far, in that I really love seeing my progress when it comes to my creativity. And I also use my Pallas Athena in Sagittarius foresight to kind of see the bigger picture or see into the future. And then that gets me excited. It gets, even with the Aquarius, right? The sun is in Aquarius. I want to innovate. I want to try new things. I want to think outside of the box. But the sun aspect, the sun part of it does speak to that celebratory piece, I think. So, yeah, look to aspects. Plus, I'm going to say here, Pallas, Athena, and Leo folks, you aren't likely to back down from competition because you want to be proud of yourself, or you want to prove yourself, because it's about yourself. And you'll also want to show the world what you're made of, the world what you've got. And that maybe speaks to the whole, okay, impressing others. But hey, this is where aspects, again, they come in, because when we think about potentially challenging aspects, we want to be mindful, because, for example, this could look like hiding, or not wanting to join in, or not wanting to try that new thing, that project, or not wanting to apply a new strategic way of doing things, because there could be fear, right? There could be fear of success, fear of recognition, fear of being seen. I've got Chiron and Leo, and I can kind of relate to this. But then equally, there can also be the side of this that speaks to the desperation. It's like, see me, and then it can get to a point where nothing's ever enough. Okay, you're trying to fill this void, and then that's when you really want to strip it back and think about, okay, well, what aspects are being made to Pallas and Leo? And then I also go to this father connection, right? We said at the beginning about the father connection, is like, it's a really good idea to look into Pallas Athena in this regard. And then I'm wondering about maybe issues to do with the father, issues to do with his love, not getting the affection that you wanted as a child. We sort of go to those themes a bit. Yeah, those are the things that really came through for me there whilst I was exploring Pallas in Leo. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena and Leo. And now we are going to explore Pallas Athena in Virgo. Okay, so Pallas Athena in Virgo, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how analytical and detail oriented you can be. So, what you may do is you may examine solutions to new issues up close. Up close. You want to look at all of the details, all of the small moving parts. You're going to notice tiny errors that others may overlook. Oh, yeah. In this respect, what you do, this is a big gift of yours. What you do is you break things down, you strip things back to their simplest form. And then what this suggests is that there is something purifying about this process. You don't typically like to complicate things, but at the same time, there can be moments when matters are overcomplicated. Maybe especially to other people, but hey, maybe not to you. Maybe to you there is a fine order. There's something quite holy and sacred about this process in a way if you think about it. And then if others need your help, you just might want to assist in any way you can. And then at the same time, this is about high performance. This is about high quality, high standards, doing the job correctly, right? This is what's so, so important for you. And I do want to highlight in a way here because with my Pallas Athena is in Sagittarius, and then Jupiter, the ruler of Sagittarius, is in Virgo. So there is that square by sign. And I do notice that when it comes to working with astrology, the very system that is astrology, I'm always about refining it, refining it, refining it. And there can be times when I have overcomplicated it. But at the same time, I see how those experiences have led up to where I am today. And I think that is an important part to Pallas Athena. It is about the experience. It is about the wisdom that is gained through experience. And so if you have Pallas Athena in Virgo, even though it might seem a bit complex to others, or even though it might feel a bit uh, overly restrained, or like, oh my goodness, there's so many moving parts to this, there's a lot to this. Right. There can be a lot because of all the tiny, tiny pieces, the tiny elements. But through that process, you remember that you're going to come to the other side of that. And you could very well have something that's very refined, polished, clean. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. We want to remember that when it comes to this placement. And also, you might turn to medicine, sewing, pottery. You might turn to health as sources of inspiration. So, for example, this could be about nutrition, diet. This could be about your exercise routines. This could be about crafts, right? This is about your craft and how you refine your craft. And you get better with time and more lessons by developing more skills. And politically, you're going to be quite practical, you're going to be quite hands-on. And then, like I said, you're going to have these high expectations of yourself, and you're also going to recognize any justice or legal changes that should be made in your view. You'll use discernment when considering healing methods. You can possess healthy levels of skepticism. Perhaps yoga, nutrition, exercise, crafts, they also contribute to your healing. And you can be quite humble when competition is concerned. But you'll always put your best foot forward, right? You're not going to outwardly come out with it and say, I'm going to compete with someone and you're going to be a lot more polished about it, or let's put it a different way. You're going to be more poised about it, graceful about it. And then I think also you're going to be quite analytical. You might think to yourself, is this something that I can realistically do, practically do? But hey, aspects also come into the equation. So we want to be mindful of aspects to Pallas Athena in the chart. I mean, Pallas Athena with those challenging aspects so especially in Virgo, could suggest being overly detailed, or the analysis paralysis could come in, the perfectionism could come in, the harsh criticisms, or the, oh, I'm not actually gonna do that. No, what am I? Well, I'm no good at this. I'm no good at this. I can't do this. I suck. These kinds of thoughts could come in. And there could also be this I'm not like, until I get to that point, I'm not gonna even bother. Mm, But yet that could be keeping you back from a natural process that could be really helpful for you. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena and Virgo folks. Now we are going to explore Pallas Athena in Libra. Okay, so Pallas Athena in Libra folks, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how diplomatic, fair minded, and tactful you can be. Personally, I see Pallas Athena performing really, really well in Libra because Pallas Athena is about diplomacy, is tied in with justice, tied to justice. And Libra is the very archetype, the very sign of justice. So if you have this placement, you just might consider all of the moving parts when coming up with solutions to new issues. You're going to think outside of yourself. You're going to think about others and their experiences. This could even be where you gain a lot of wisdom. It's by observing, by understanding other people. And you'll assess how things relate to one another. Yeah. So that's certainly a strength with this particular placement. Perhaps there is never a simple black and white answer. So you're going to see the gray. Also, you'll typically want to remain rational, fair, maybe somewhat impartial. You'll not want to become personally involved within whatever the situation is. You're able to take yourself outside of the situation and even to put yourself into other people's shoes. You possess a desire to bring a balance and harmony to the atmosphere. Anything basically too far one side, so too far to one side or the other, can make you feel uneasy, a bit shaken up, a bit stirred. So whenever you sense that, whenever you feel that, that's when you might try to make sure that justice is served or that the balance is restored. This is about order. You might also turn to the likes of, could be law, could be beauty, fashion, design, music, as sources of inspiration. You might even really enjoy how things appear, how things look, even how you can sort of consider how you can create harmony within the atmosphere itself. And then when it comes to politics and justice, you can be a natural mediator. Yeah, you can be a natural mediator. You'll see what needs to be done, perhaps legally. And then you can also be a defender of justice. You'll weigh out your options when considering even healing methods too. So maybe in this way, you do like to make sure that you're covering all areas, or you're making sure that you're looking at things from multiple angles. So there is going to be this patience to you. Tai Chi, couples therapy, counseling, mediation, all of these types of areas could very well contribute to your own personal healing. And then what I'm also thinking here is that perhaps you have this take it or leave it attitude towards competition. So it does depend. It depends on the situation. It depends on how you weigh things out. But there may just be a part of you that wants to win, right? You may not necessarily say that outwardly, but there could be that little part of you that goes, oh, I would like to win within this. And at the same time, we want to be mindful because we want to think about aspects to Pallas. So when we consider perhaps more challenging aspects to Pallas, this could look like you not wanting to make a decision or fearing that you'll make the wrong decision. And so because you have that fear with relation to making decisions, especially when we consider decision making to do with strategic thinking, to do with the bigger picture, coming up with solutions. So whenever you're in that state of mind, that can be when it feels almost impossible. You may sit on the fence, you just might be overly fearful that maybe you'll upset someone, or, oh, what if this goes really wrong? There could be these kinds of thoughts and feelings and fears that come up. But then equally, this could also look like you feeling as if maybe you have the answer, right? It's you that holds the keys to whatever the situation is. Like you have the resolve, you know what the solution is. And then maybe within that, it can appear as if it's you so you're subtly trying to lead, right? You're subtly trying to lead and in a way have a say in what the outcome is. Because for you, you think, I know what the best strategy is here. I know what the best approach is here. Again, it depends on aspects to Pallas Athena in Libra. Though, just one more thing, I'm also going to consider this. Be mindful of the avoidance stuff, right? This could be where aspects come into the equation as well, where you'd rather not say the thing because you don't want to disrupt the harmony within the atmosphere. Yeah. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena in Libra, folks. And now we are going to talk about Pallas Athena in Scorpio. Pallas Athena in Scorpio, folks. Let's talk about you. What does this suggest about you if you have this placement? Okay, your creative intelligence shows just how deep and perceptive and profound you can be, especially when it comes to your discoveries, your investigations. You want to get to the root of any issue. And so any solutions you come up with, they will come from a piercing place. They will come from your depths. Indeed, you see what's beneath the surface and you can bring whatever information you find to light. And this, my goodness, can be amazing for resolve, right? Resolving conflict or coming up with an effective solution that actually works by making what is unconscious conscious, or what is subconscious conscious. You can do remarkable things. It's almost as if to say you can perform miracles. You can even act as that guiding force for other people to help them see their own shadow, them access their subconscious, and then they can let out parts of what is hidden. And then by them bringing those hidden parts to their conscious awareness, they can actually work effectively with whatever is there. Oh yeah. However, this is a strength that, well, it shouldn't be taken lightly, because you can use whatever you find, whatever you discover, for better or for worse. Yeah. You could move people in a really effective, empowering, motivating way where people feel resilient. People feel like, yes, I can overcome my fears. I've got this. Victory. Even Pallas Athena is about victory to an extent. But equally, this can also manifest as you being able to maybe pick up on little things from other people and then use what you discover against them, maybe as a way to outbeat potential competition. But hey, that can even be done in a more constructive way too, right? So there is that. Still, you might turn to investigation, to sex even, to mystery, or to the paranormal as sources of inspiration. And I gotta say that it reminds me of someone I knew from a long time ago who had Pallas Athena and Scorpio, and we would watch a lot of murder mystery stories together. But yes, this could be where your sources of inspiration are really felt. And politically speaking, you can keep your cards close to your chest. You will not reveal your strategy, especially to enemies, especially to people who you think, well, who you know deep down who will oppose you or who will just be chaotic or a mess. You think to yourself, what's the point in that? No. And when you want justice at the same time, you can be quite dominant. You can be devoted, you can be intense. Heck, it could even be suggested that you go quiet. Okay, so there's maybe some injustice or there's something that is unsettling and you prefer to keep quiet until maybe you can express that or let it out. But you're still going to be strategic, right? This is about strategic thinking. So your strategic thinking could be hidden. Oh, yeah, hidden. So you may sort of work behind the scenes or work in the background where people can't see what you're doing. And then, boom, things come to light, right? It's almost like the visibility, the results speak for themselves when they come out. You can also be very passionate when it comes to any healing methods. The likes of scream therapy, sex therapy, hypnosis, symbolic art, right? These things could very well contribute to your healing. And when we consider competitive matters, you can be quite determined when it comes to competition. You'll be controlled, you'll be strong, you'll be resilient. And as I was saying a moment ago, you can work in the background, working in the dark, if you will, where people are not going to know what to expect, which can be your strength here. And even when it comes to competitive tendencies in general, you go through these renewals, these transformations. This also does depend on aspects, right? We want to consider this. So when working with aspects, I mean, especially challenging aspects, this could, for instance, show up as the control part of Pallas Athena and Scorpio maybe being too much, or it could be self-sabotage. There could be the self-destructive tendencies or the extreme like tendencies when we consider the archetype of Scorpio. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena and Scorpio. And now we are going to explore Pallas Athena in Sagittarius. And this is the placement that I have in my chart. Okay, Pallas Athena in Sagittarius, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how moral and conceptual you can be. Oh, yeah. This to me screams that you're going to align your strategies with what your morals are, your moral compass. So when you come up against new issues, you'll use your moral compass for guidance. Your solutions also typically reflect the bigger picture. You want to do the right thing. And at the same time, your imagination can lead the way, right? You can be very intuitive, imaginative, philosophical. You tend to think in the abstract here. This is really a part of your gift with this placement. And you consider universal principles and truths. Oh, yeah. At the same time, this is about acquiring knowledge, informing yourself. So anytime when maybe you feel like you need to know more or you can't quite grasp something quite complex, this is where your desire to learn comes in, to actively seek the answer, to actively seek the knowledge. But it's also about understanding. You often ask yourself, why? Why is it like this? Why is the world the way it is? Why is astrology the way it is if we think about astrology? And then what I'm also going to say here is my father, right? So we explained at the beginning that Pallas Athena can be explored through a lens of the relationship we have or had with our father figures. And this can be in a healthy way or an unhealthy way. I just want to highlight that. But essentially, my father had Venus and Moon in Sagittarius. And then I've got Pallas Athena in the fourth house. So his planets would have been in my fourth house of family. So it was my father who passed on his knowledge, especially knowledge to do with religion, onto me, but also morals, principles, code of ethics, things like that. And I would say that whilst I don't practice that religion today, I can still see how my father, in a way, shaped me, right? Shaped my own inner world when it comes to my morals. And then equally, as I was talking about at the beginning with the Pallas and Aries themes, my father had Pallas Athena in Aries, and then I have the moon in Aries. So you see those connections, the family patterns, the family dynamics. Look into this stuff for yourselves, folks. Really look into those connections. Still, you might turn to the likes of travel, religion, philosophy, or spiritual knowledge as sources of inspiration. Yes, there's an intellectual side to this placement, but there's also quite a spiritual side to this placement. And politically, you can be a defender of truth. So much of this is about truth. And you can be rather righteous when it comes to law and justice. You'll fight for what you believe in. You will defend what you believe in. Plus, you can be adventurous when considering healing methods. You may have this attitude of, I'll try anything once. It could be like that, honestly. Then again, it could also be about tarot, humanistic therapy, hiking. Oh my goodness, hiking for me is so healing. It speaks to my soul. Yeah. Lectures as well can even contribute to your healing. And in terms of competition, you want to reach your greatest, your highest potential. So even when you maybe lose, there is something you gain, right? There's something you gain and you learn. So yes, in one way to look at this is you could be quite competitive in that maybe you think, right, I can give this all I've got, I'm going to believe in myself, I'm going to follow my dreams, so I'm going to do this. But then even during times whenever you don't win or there's maybe a challenge there, you still think, right, well, what can I learn? This is so much about continuously learning and refining your knowledge. And then it's through experience as well. A lot of this is about how your experiences really add to your strategic thinking. So that can be quite powerful. Now, do keep in mind aspects to Pallas. Okay, so maybe challenging aspects to Pallas, Athena, and Sagittarius could suggest that you can go overboard. I know for me, right, even though it's not square by degree, Jupiter's in Virgo and they square by sign, where the Sagittarius Virgo stuff. And I can bite off more than I can chew. It's just often a thing with me. Even Jupiter's making a square to my midheaven. So yeah, trying to learn how to manage my own expectations or manage what I can realistically achieve. But then, this can even manifest as you being overly self-righteous. Like, listen to me, I know the truth. And so I'm going to preach and I'm going to send this message and people need to hear my message. Funny enough, I can identify those parts of myself. So I can identify those themes within myself, but my younger self. Yeah. Anyway, thank you so much, Pallas Athena and Sagittarius, folks. And now we are going to talk about Pallas Athena in Capricorn. All right, Pallas Athena in Capricorn, folks, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows just how structured, orderly, and practical you can be. So, what you'll do is you'll assess the foundation of any new issue, and your solutions will be based on what has already been successfully tried and tested. So, if you know that something has worked really well in the past, you're going to stick to that. You're going to stick to that because you can depend on that. You'll also want to be the authority of the plan, especially if it is, for example, that you are a manager, a boss, you run your own business. This is very much about the plan and how you can organize that plan. You'll come up with a strategy that works. And you prefer also to gain recognition for your efforts. Now, it could be that the recognition you receive is basically just the result of your hard work, your dedication, your mastery. So I do imagine this, for example, as you refining your craft or mastering a skill over many years. And then because of that, then people come to you, right? They come to you because you're the one with the plan, you're the one with the strategy, you're the one with bucket loads of experience. And you might also turn to the likes of business, drafting, building, or planning as sources of inspiration. Maybe you love a good plan, honestly. You love a good plan. And if even, for example, you own your own home, your own property, right? There's something about that building process that you might, in a way, enjoy, or you want to be in control of it, or you can be very good at seeing, okay, what should go where. And when it comes to politics here, you aim to defend law and order. You will make sure justice is served and to be the person in control. You basically might have a thing or two to say about the likes of politics or the likes of law, because you can see even what needs to be done so that matters are more effective, so that there is greater order. And it can also take you some time to see which healing methods work best. There could be some healthy caution, possibly skepticism to do with certain healing methods. You will not settle for less either. So I sort of imagine this, for example, as, new healing methods that come up, more progressive or very innovative. And then you might be quite skeptical of those. Maybe you want other people to test those new methods out first and then see how they've been tried and tested over a long period of time. And then you think, okay, now I'm going to go for it. Now I'm going to approach this. And massage, laser therapy, also dental care, all these things could contribute to your own healing. And it's also healing methods that work, right? You know that they work. And so you might return to them time and time again. Heck, you could even go on to create your own business where you are the one who is offering some type of healing service or a service that really assists other people, possibly even with their own creative inspiration, their creative intelligence. Though competitively speaking, being seen as the big boss might matter to you greatly. Being seen as the authority. You want to be taken seriously. So Yeah, sure. There can be times when you step in and you do compete, but you do so with so much wisdom and knowledge and expertise underneath. But before you have the expertise, before you have that knowledge, you'll probably not want to compete, if you will, right? It's all about the building long term process with Capricorn. Though it does matter as well when we think about aspects. You want to explore aspects to Pallas Athena in your chart. I mean, some challenging aspects could be that there's some fears here, fears of failure, or you know what, fears of success. Yeah, that's a possibility. So there could be the fears of messing it up, feeling in front of other people, being seen as incompetent or like you don't know what you're doing. But then equally, there could be the fears of success where maybe you keep yourself back because you think, oh, I don't know if I can manage all of that responsibility. Like, what if I can't do it? What if I'm seen as an imposter? Right? Those kinds of feelings could be running through your mind. Anyway, thank you so much, Pallas Athena and Capricorn folks. And now we are going to talk about Pallas Athena in Aquarius. Okay, Pallas Athena in Aquarius, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how futuristic, progressive, and inventive you can be. Oh, yeah. When a new issue arises, you might jump 2 steps ahead and consider the future possibilities. What could it be? Huh? What could it be? The solutions you bring forward typically represent what is still to come. But you see, this can suggest you being quite intuitive, right? There's an intuition present. But then again, this can result in some people being confused, right? Confusion from other people, them scratching their head like, this is not going to work. No. But then you're thinking, trust me, have faith in me. So you're ahead of your time and you like to try out new ways of tackling problems, tackling issues. And then what I also want to mention, because I have been talking about my own experiences, as I was saying earlier, Pallas Athena is in Sagittarius in my chart, making sextiles to the Sun and Mercury in Aquarius. So the Aquarian themes, I can see how my Aquarius traits come through here too, because I tend to jump ahead a few steps creatively. And then that's also fueled a lot by my Aries moon. But I digress. If you've got Pallas Athena in Aquarius here, you might turn to the likes of technology, progressive house music. Love it. I love it. I mean, I love that kind of music. You might turn to graphics or space, astrology as sources of inspiration. Heck, it could also be science. Yes, science is something that you turn to. It could be reading that you turn to, anything even just that stimulates your mind, your strong curiosity, your strong intellect. And then politically speaking here, you'll typically defend humanitarian issues, humanitarian causes or movements. You might be a part of certain movements, protests, you might sign certain petitions, get other people to sign them, and you'll fight for freedom, right? This is so much about people's freedoms. Maybe equality comes into this, really, this fairness comes in. Pallas Athena is so much about politics and law, justice. And then, yeah, there is the justice piece that comes in, but this is more about the collective. All right. So, justice for the collective, justice for certain communities, certain people, certain groups. And you just might experiment with healing methods. So, I was saying a moment ago for the Pallas, Athena, and Capricorn people, they may be a little bit more hesitant or skeptical, cautious when it comes to new healing methods, things that are more innovative. But you, on the other hand, you may be straight in there, okay? Straight in there. Or you could also be somewhat cautious, Pallas is still, or Pallas in Aquarius is still in a way being ruled by Saturn here. Um, but there is still that, oh, I might give this a go. Group therapy, crystals, vibration, geometry, these all contribute to your healing. And this is mind-blowing to me because I have been in group psychotherapy for 5 years, for the past 5 years. And then, like I was saying, I have those connections to my natal Pallas Athena in Sagittarius because of my Aquarius planets. My Aquarius planets are in the sixth house of health. And I also want to say that currently, and I'm recording this on the 2nd of August, 2025, Pallas Athena is in Aquarius in the skies and will be joining up with the full moon, the upcoming full moon in Aquarius on the 9th of August. So that's interesting because this is about revisiting our very strategies when we consider the collective, our attitudes towards the collective. Still, when it comes to you, Pallas Athena in Aquarius folks, you might appear as if you do not care for competition, but the moment you get to share your uniqueness, you will. You will. And then what I'm also going to consider about this is there's a detachment present. You might detach from the outcome, and that could be a part of your strength, a part of your gift here. So even though you're strategically planning and thinking and you're trying to be intellectual about it and you're trying to look at things through this bird's eye view, right? You can see the interconnectedness. This is really a really solid placement for seeing the bigger picture. But even though you're doing that, there could be a healthy level of detachment. It's almost like the minute that you do detach from the very outcome, the very result, that's when certain things just start to unfold. That's how this energy could play out for you. It does also depend now on aspects, right? So do remember aspects to Pallas Athena in your chart. So for example, more challenging aspects could show up as you being quite apathetic or really whatever, I don't care, the whole teenager side of Aquarius, I don't care for that. But it can be in a way where it comes off as quite obnoxious or just overly unemotional or unfeeling. But then it could also show up as you really pushing your strong views on others, your strong opinions on other people. And you think, you must listen to me. Okay, I know the way. Yeah, look to aspects to Pallas Athena as well. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena in Aquarius, folks. And now we are going to talk about, lastly, Pallas Athena in Pisces. Okay, Pallas Athena in Pisces, folks, let's talk about you. Your creative intelligence shows how imaginative and spiritual you can be, how creative you can be, how in the flow you can be. When you come up against new issues, you basically see beyond what is being shown. You can even tap into matters that are more unconscious or hidden. And it's as if you have a sixth sense. You just intuitively know what the next step is. Of course, not always. That's also going to depend on aspects, and then it does depend on the situation itself. Still, your solutions, they come from an extremely insightful and intuitive place, especially the more you come to know yourself or the more that you tend to connect with the collective unconscious. That can be when things are really powerful. You might not even be aware, though. You might not be aware of your psychic abilities. You might not even be aware that this is happening. I'm going to say that. Still, it could be suggested that you're a natural born healer. And again, it's not to say that you're aware of this. It's almost just like you know what people might require or need within that moment. You might even turn to the likes of fantasy, film, music, or your dreams as sources of inspiration. And I know of someone very close to me who has Pallas Athena in Pisces, and they love fantasy. They are an artist and a painter, and they're very gifted at what they do. though I don't think they would necessarily say that they're gifted. I think they are gifted at what they do. And then when it also comes to politics and justice, you choose the non-violent route. Yeah. You're very strong about violence is not the answer. You would prefer it if humanity was more compassionate and more empathetic, and fighting was not an option. You might also devote yourself to a cause or to a charity that moves you deeply, really, really deeply, right? You have such a compassionate heart here. And then that's even where your strategic thinking comes in, because your strategic thinking moves beyond just yourself. It even moves beyond just, people within your local environment, your local area. It goes beyond and thinks about, the collective and how the collective must be feeling and how certain things are connected, the events, okay, even into the realms that, are more spiritual. When we think about, for example, people who have passed, you can get these messages that come through, for instance, from people who have passed, or these symbols, right? The symbolism, you see it everywhere. Yeah. But like I'm saying here, this is the strategic thinking tied to Pallas Athena here. Now, it could also be suggested that you consider many types of healing methods. There could be many. Let's think about poetry, art, meditation, or journaling. They could all contribute to your healing. And I'm even thinking about perhaps psychotherapy, hypnosis as well, but especially the art. I think art could be massive for you healing wise, right? It's almost like art helps you escape. Art helps you relax and maybe get away from the everyday worries of life. And then that within itself can be really recharging and revitalizing for your energy. And whilst you can take part in a competition, you still wish the best for the other person or the people involved. I don't really I don't see this as you being a super competitive person. I actually think that this is where we really see the whole thing of sure, okay, I might enter a contest, I might enter a competition in some way, but I am not going to have any expectations with relation to the result. I'm not going to think, oh, I really want to come first, or it's just what will be will be. This the whole thing of Pisces. It's being able to truly let go and release a lot of expectations. And then I'm also going to go to how this is so much about following a stream of consciousness when it comes to strategic thinking and your very creative, intelligent process. And so, in this regard, you might live for the now. You may be someone who really tries to tune into, okay, you got to appreciate each day as it comes. Let's try and not jump super far into the future or anything. Let's be in the moment. And that can be really soothing for you and for other people. Now, I do remember aspects, of course, to Pallas Athena, because we want to think about, for example, challenging aspects to Pallas Athena showing up as unhealthy levels of escapism or maybe dependency. Okay. There could be even addictive tendencies here as well present, where you could be, for example, addicted to this inspirational side of it, the sources of inspiration to do with Pallas Athena, or where you may even, you may even completely avoid at all costs any sort of justice situations, legal issues that come up. You can bury your head in the sand. So there is that as a possibility. Yeah, there can be the dreaminess, the escapism, the idealism, the projections that come in when we consider Pallas Athena in Pisces. Thank you so much, Pallas Athena in Pisces, folks. But with all of that being said, everybody, this has been the video all about Pallas Athena in astrology through the signs. Yes, thank you so much for listening. Thank you for watching. So, what we did today is we truly focused on the strategic thinking, the creative intelligence, and those competitive tendencies as well. And of course, we did touch on more of the justice themes. Do remember that Pallas Athena is about so much more, but I hope that you did find this video to be helpful. If you did find it to be helpful, you can always buy me a coffee. And if you would like to book a reading with me where I can guide you using your unique birth chart as a tool, you can visit my website, hannahselsewhere.com. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already, everybody, and give the video a like if you did like it today. Stay tuned for more. Thank you for watching, and I will be back with another video very, very soon. Bye!